What's going on with this chat right here, bro?
No, it just appears that the YouTube notifications aren't populating because it didn't populate for me for Angel yesterday either or today.
YouTube.
Yeah, the YouTube's not sending that notification through.
YouTube is hating on hood stocks. What's new, huh? It's okay. It's all right. Let's pay some respect, man.
We want to keep this monetized, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Ken Flores, rest easy, brother. Chicago stand-up, one of great upcoming comedian. His life was cut short, and we will, for the remainder of the year, pay our respects like I said we would, you know. Let me see right here. Casey, I think it's game time. Is it game time?
Yeah, it's game time. Let's go.
Mispronounced that. Let's go. Is that it right there? No, let's try this one right here. Trying to get lock in different beats right here. Hey, I see what he tapped there. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. Thursday evening. Got a banger for you right now. Yes, sir. Chop City on the beat. Chop City, where you at, man? We need some more beats. Yes, sir. Renee, I see you. Hey, appreciate that. Nefadius. Hood Visuals TV. Yes, sir. We on a roll, baby.
Here is what the listeners.
Yes, sir. Appreciate everybody tapping in this evening, this early evening. Beautiful summer, man. Sheesh, the sun's out. I remember back in the day, man. But maybe just because I'm a married man now, that my head ain't on that type of swivel. And the swivel I'm talking about is back in the day when the summertime came, all the honeys were outside, and just like they said, the sun's out, the buns were out, 100%. I mean, California, right?
I mean, a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place with beautiful women, and women would let you know that it is summertime on these streets. But for some reason, I don't see that happening very often. Maybe the climate of the city right now, right? Instead of seeing the sun's out, the buns aren't out, but people got the mask and they suited and booted and they got their signs. So I guess it's just it's not that type of party right now, right?
Well, I mean, the ICE protest definitely rained on the Pride Month for sure.
So, I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I'm sorry to hear that, bro. I'm sure that affected.
Well, riot season takes over Pride Month.
Yeah, man. Hey, everybody, I want everybody to give a warm welcome for our guest today, Mr. Tony Moon.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, brother. So we had limited conversation coming here. I came in hot, a little late. Appreciate you being on time, sir. And so I said, Tony, I don't want to talk about what we're going to do. We're just going to do it. And he said, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Shoot from the hip, spontaneous about it. But I did give a little thought of what I was going to do and how I was going to do it in a sense of this right here. And so I put up a post. And sometimes I feel like Instagram is just an ocean, right? And sometimes I just pull out the fishing rod and I cast my line out into the ocean, and I see what I can catch in the sense of putting up a post and saying, hey guys, who do you want to see on Hood Stocks? And a couple of people tagged you. And I do my due diligence, man. I go through the comments and I'm like, they didn't tag this guy again. You know what I mean? Who's this? You know what I mean? It said, your Instagram is Roof Korean 7. And right then and there, I said, hold on a second. Let me click on this. And I clicked on it, and here's your profile. I'm looking at it right now. Your profile says, Christian Patriot, 1992 OG Roof Korean, 2021 Antifa, Hunter 2021 J6 DC Tourist. And I was like, all right, I gotta holler at this dude right here, man. This is this is not the average person that is being tagged on my Instagram. So here we are, Mr. Tony Moon, man, and we were able to have get on the phone and have a little bit of conversation. And I was very intrigued by what you shared with me over the phone. And right away I thought that you were not on the roof in the 92 riots.
No, I wasn't.
You weren't.
No.
But you originate from Korea. Tell us a little bit about yourself, about your origins, brother.
So I immigrated here when I was 5 from Germany. And, my parents, they lived near Pico Union, and then we moved to Hollywood. And then from Hollywood, I went to school, hung out with friends there. But during that time in 92, it's, my father didn't have any skin in the game. He didn't have a business. We had a business prior in Boyle Heights, and then we had another one in Huntington Park. And then he sold those back in, I think it was like 87, 88.
What kind of business were they?
They were markets.
Markets?
Yeah, markets. So I grew up a lot with the Latino community.
Exactly. I was gonna say that, bro. Boyle Heights. Come on now. You know what I mean? Every section you're naming is a Latino community.
Right, exactly.
And how does it feel to be integrated as a child growing up in the city within the Latino community?
Well, I'll be honest.
Yes.
First year, I think I fought first year of my life in Boyle Heights. Like I fought all the kids in the neighborhood. I pretty much fought.
Yeah.
Because I was that weird Asian kid that had a German accent, didn't speak English right, and didn't know how to speak Spanish, and it was all messed up. Yeah. So that integration took about a year, but after about a year, I picked up the language, so I speak Spanish.
Oh, you speak Spanish?
Yeah, I speak some Spanish. So
okay.
I learned all the bad words first, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So I learned how to speak Spanish, and then kids are going to be kids, and then you start kind of learning about each other, and then you hang out with some of the kids in the neighborhood, and then that's how you kind of become part of the community. You go to their house, you eat their food, they come over, they eat your food, and you start getting along, and then you figure out you got a lot more things in common than uncommon.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that too, brother. I mean, the diversity within our community, Los Angeles, is absolutely amazing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good, but at the end of the day, as you grow older, you're like, man, I'm glad I was raised through this environment.
Yeah.
Would you agree on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because now, back when I came here, it was back in the late 70s, like 77. So now we're at 2025. You got like kids that are teenagers that have mixed race parents that one's Mexicans, the other one's Korean, or I see a lot more of that now than I did obviously 40, 50 years ago, but you see a lot more of that now. So you got these half Korean, half Mexican kids running around.
Yeah.
And it seems to be
those are the most handsomest kids too, huh?
Yeah, they're good looking.
Our cutest kids, good looking kids.
And that seems to be more kind of common in LA than I guess other places. And that's just because of the demographics of where we live. We got a vibrant, thriving Asian community, and then you have an entrenched Latino community, and then eventually you're going to get along and see a lot of things in common, especially with food, right, and culture, family values, beliefs. So then they start integrating, and then pretty soon you got kids.
Absolutely. And so I can't, man. I'm glad you're here, and you're going to be able to answer this question finally. How? Why? Not how. No, not why. How are Koreans always owning the liquor stores, the markets?
Well,
what do we not know, bro?
Well, the thing is that I did another podcast with Alex Stein.
Okay.
And he mentioned there was a misconception that Asians that came here, Koreans that came here, got free, interest-free loans and whatnot to open these businesses, which is false. A lot of them actually either worked hard to save their money, or they borrowed money from relatives in Korea to open these businesses.
Nice.
Now, prior to them buying these businesses were owned by Jews.
Yes.
Because they basically owned a lot of the markets and whatnot down in South Central, South LA, and those areas.
The real estate.
Yeah, and then when my dad bought his first store in Boyle Heights, he bought it from a Japanese guy that owned it, and then the Japanese dude bought it from a Jew before.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of the business gets passed off from one immigrant to the next, and then as they progressively their kids do better, then obviously the business gets sold to something else, and the kids end up it usually doesn't get passed down to the kids. The kids end up doing going to college and doing something totally different, getting a profession, or being a professional or a different type of entrepreneur. But these were stepping stones for a lot of these immigrant families that came here that had very limited English, really limited prospects based upon the standards in America, because some of them are actually college educated in Korea. But when you come here, it doesn't mean jack, right? So they have to start all over. So with that, I mean, the only thing that they can pretty much communicate is numbers and math. How much is that? 59 cents. How much is that? That's 99 cents. So it's very transactional. So these were some of the, I guess you can say, low entry barrier to get into, creating a livelihood for yourself and your family. So in that sense, everybody worked. I mean, I was counting back change at the store when I was like 8, 9 years old. So I knew how to count back. Someone gave me a 20. It was like, $18.99. I knew how to count back, the money from the register. So that's something that I learned to do when I was a kid. But that's only because we all worked, and the only days off were like Christmas Day and New Year's Day. All the other times you worked.
I'd say I go out on a limb and say that Koreans or Asians in general seem a whole lot better. I don't know if it's genetically in regards to counting, math, business. I don't know.
Well, I think we emphasize it more.
Yes,
we really do. But I don't think it's just something that we're good at. I think it's something that you can teach your kids. I mean, if you emphasize math in the home,
yes,
and it's part of, like, let's say, your own lifestyle of what you do, like your own finances.
Okay.
That the kids see that, and then they pick that up as a habit or as a skill or something that's important for the future, right? So there's a good movie. It's with Edward James Olmos.
Yeah.
And it was the teacher from Wilson High, Mr. Escalante. He taught calculus to
yes. What's that? Stand by me.
Stand and deliver.
Stand
and deliver. Yeah, that's a great. My kids remember that movie because we watched that.
Yeah.
But that just goes to show you can teach someone math skills. It's just a matter of are they willing to accept it.
And exactly what you said, it's what they emphasize within the household of growing up.
Right.
If they're emphasizing domestic violence, then you're just going to learn how to, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I hate to use that example or that analogy,
No,
but it's true.
Yeah.
Yes, it's absolutely true. So there it is right there, guys. You know what I mean? We got to really emphasize in our households what we want our, trajectory for our kids to go, right?
Yeah.
Our skill set, our foundation, right?
Right. And I think as the kids get older, they'll notice hypocrisy in the house, right? So if you're a certain way in public and then you're different in private, it may not have affected them when they were younger because they're kids. They're younger. What do they know? But as they become older, they become teens. They'll see that disconnect between the two, right? So if let's say you're emphasizing, having an education and studying and whatnot, but at home you're like, you're always drinking and you're just not doing jack. The kids see that as in like do as I say, but not as I do. And I think that works to a certain point, but as a parent, you have to lead by example. So
You're absolutely right, because sometimes my girls, I have an 8 and 9-year-old and a 17-year-old at the house, but the 8 and 9-year-old are very, very vocal. They're like, because I'm like, man, you got to clean up. They're like, you don't wash the dishes. And I'm like, well, I pay the bills,
Right.
And so that they're already hitting me back with this stuff. So I get it, bro, and it makes sense, man. And I got to get better with that, right?
we all can be better.
Absolutely. And so how did at one point you guys move to Koreatown?
Well, we were in Pico Union.
Pico Union.
Yeah, which
Okay.
is like near Alvarado, Bonnie Bray, Olympic, that area.
That's a rough terrain right there. How was it growing up right there, bro?
Well, it was like late 70s, so it was okay.
Okay.
And then from there we moved up to Hollywood. And then when I lived in Hollywood, it was I went to an elementary school that was pretty much mixed. We had black, white, Armenians. We had different types of Latinos. We had different types of Asians. So it was really interesting because that's what I thought America was, right? And then I go to work at the store in Boyle Heights, and then I'm just surrounded by Latinos, and I'm like, man, this is another part of America, So it was really different growing up like that. But I got used to that. I got used to, like, this is L.A. L.A. is it's basically a mix of people. You got all kinds of different immigrants from everywhere. I'm writing a book about that. Okay. And in my book, one of my friends is actually Egyptian, and I talk about how you can't meet an Egyptian just straight up unless you live in a big city that draws immigrants from different parts of the world.
Yeah. Casey, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, I thought I heard you say something over there. And so, our conversation on the phone, man, and I know we have limited time, so I just kind of want to. You're also you teach martial arts,
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing. Have you done that all? You said, were you taught as a child from your family with martial arts?
Actually, I got the fights I got into in Boyle Heights. My dad was like, "Look, if you're gonna always get out there and scrap, so you might as well learn some sort of discipline." So, one of the first things I learned was Taekwondo, which is a Korean martial arts style. And when I learned it back in like the 70s and 80s, it was different than what it is now. I learned it from my instructor. My master was a Marine, Korean Republic of Korea Marine. So the way he taught was different than the way they're teaching more like a sports style. But the way he taught, it was more in tune with like, because back in the late 70s, early 80s, Taekwondo was coming up as a style. Karate was before that. Now it's all BJJ, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the karate guys started taking the earlier Taekwondo classes because they were incorporating a lot more different hand technique styles that they don't use anymore now. But then I went from that and I progressed to Muay Thai, kickboxing. I've done Kendo, which is, with the, they dress up in the garb and they have the stick, the shinai. It looks like a bamboo sword. I've done that. I've done Eskrima or Kali, which is a Filipino stick fighting. I've also done Wing Chun, which is Bruce Lee's first style. I don't know if you watched that movie, Ip Man.
Yeah.
That style, I've done that. So LA actually affords you the opportunity to learn all these different martial arts because of Hollywood. You have a lot of guys that do stunt in Hollywood, so a lot of the martial artists that came into LA, years past, they wanted to get into Hollywood, so they did a lot of the stunts, and they had a lot of different disciplines from that. So you got like Kung Fu, Karate, Taekwondo, Kali, Eskrima. You have all these different styles from different nationalities because of Hollywood, and that gave me the opportunity to learn all these different things.
That's awesome, brother. Are you a black belt? Are you?
Yeah, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But then when I teach, we don't do the whole belt thing because I think it's been commercialized to a point. I call it a belt factory now because like when you go to those strip mall places, which I think on YouTube and online you can call it a McDojo, as what they call it.
Yeah.
Where your kid comes or you go there and you learn certain things, but I keep my stuff to where it's realistic. So we do stuff that works. So we might incorporate a bit of wrestling, judo. My kid's done judo. I've done some judo too, so we incorporate judo as well. I teach guys that do private security. So that's
awesome.
Yeah, we have to do certain techniques that's optic friendly because everyone's recording you on the phone.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to make it look. You can't like just be clocking guys left and right because that doesn't look good, right? But if you're able to take down someone fairly quickly and just put your knee on them, knee on belly, and just subdue them, that looks better, right? Than if you just clock the guy and the guy just like falls back.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you must love the UFC. Do you love the UFC?
I did in the early 2000s.
Oh.
I actually did a podcast with Jake Shields.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he fought against GSP back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, I respect the guys that do that fight for a living because it's a rough road. It is.
100%, bro.
It's a tough road.
In the climate we live in nowadays, man, you got to be really careful. Even if there's like gang members, man, that they think they badass, and they might be at a bar with some little dude or something talking. Bro, you really got to watch out because you don't know who knows what. You might be in the middle of the bar with your lady standing looking down at you, and you tapping out, bro. You're like, bro, I'm tapping. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Everybody, my 89-year-olds are studying Muay Thai right now.
Nice.
And they love it, brother.
Yeah.
They love it. Shout out to Vinny Familari. He's a bare knuckle fighter. He's a black belt in Muay Thai.
Nice.
And they're training with him. He's a good friend of mine, man. Oh, I love that dude. He's so good with my girls, man. And my girls love it, man.
As long as they enjoy it.
They love it,
That's the
brother.
important part.
Yeah. Yesterday I took them and they were just like, I'm tired. I want this and that. And I said, nope, we're going. And on the way over there, they took a nap. And then that made it even worse, right?
Right.
And they're like, I don't want to go. And then once we got in there, oh my God, they felt so good afterwards. They felt so good during it. I was watching them, man. And it's really a joy. Man, I wish my family would have got me to that, man.
Everybody who goes to the gym, like it's a pain in the ass to get there. But nobody regrets after it's done and they're leaving. They always say like, I'm glad I did this,
Yeah.
You just got to grind through it.
It's therapeutic, man.
Yeah.
Stress management, everything, even for kids.
Mm-hmm. Especially for kids.
Especially for kids,
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for the service you're doing within the community with the kids on teaching, man.
Oh, thanks.
That's great, brother. It's necessary and needed. So we were talking on the phone, and you said at one point you Koreans in Koreatown, our Rampart district, were going at it with MS. Am I jumping too far
No,
forward?
that's fine because there's actually a video on YouTube. There's a gentleman, I think it's Mr. Jew. He was one of the gun store owners off of Western and between 8th and Ninth. And he's on. They're interviewing him, like, you know, what was happening and who were you shooting at? Because the misconception is that we were shooting at the black community. You know,
You're talking about Koreans,
right?
The
Koreans.
misconception of Koreans, and what
In Koreatown.
in Koreatown?
Right.
What year? Well, I mean, what years are we talking?
We're talking 92.
92.
Yeah, 92.
Okay.
So that's the misconception. By the time the fires and the riots were moving up towards Koreatown, most of the businesses that were like in South LA, South Central, Watts, those were pretty much either burning or been looted by the black community.
And did you have business during the time with your family there?
No,
No.
I didn't.
Okay, but you were there with the Koreans.
Right, because my friend, I don't know if it's still around, but his older brother worked at he probably owns, I think he owns it now, it's in a different place, but he owned a stereo shop, and I think the name of it was called Fatty Boys. It was off of like Hoover in Washington.
Bro, I feel like I know that spot, man.
Yeah, well, these guys have been for a long time, since 92.
Okay.
And before 92.
Yeah.
And it was like Korean guys that owned it, but they were just really heavy set Korean guys.
Yeah.
You know, and they did the whole Pimp My Ride before Pimp My Ride was a thing, where they
Okay.
basically put the speakers and amps and subwoofers and all that. They tricked out your ride, so it's basically just a rolling boombox.
Nice.
Right. So they were doing that back before 92. Anyway, they had that store right off of Hoover near Washington, just north of the freeway, off the 10. And that's when my buddy called and he was like, hey, like, you see what's going on? I was like, yeah. So that's when he goes, yeah, I'll pick you up and, we'll go down there. So that's when we went down there. It was like Friday morning when we went down there. And when we got there, everybody's pulling all the equipment and product away from the windows, and they were basically boarding up the windows. But it was, he had like black.
during the 92 riots.
Right.
Yeah.
And he had,
so all the Koreans and their friends, their homies, their family members, they're getting together and they're helping their community, their friends board up the shops.
right.
Yeah.
And then also the black and Latino employees that were there were all part of it too. They were
Absolutely.
They were helping. Not only they were armed as well.
Yeah.
Because you come down to it, it's like this is where you work, right? You don't want the place you work to get thrashed. I mean, what happens if it takes them a month to come back, and put everything back together?
Everybody loses money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they didn't want that, and that's where they were there too. That's something that I don't think it really gets touched upon as a community in LA, is that, I think the media tries to paint this as a race thing, between, it was just between the blacks and the Koreans, but I think it was the community itself had a problem, with the Korean and the black community had a problem. But it wasn't just between the blacks and the Koreans. I mean, it was Latinos and other blacks that worked, and these businesses that pulled together in order to protect these businesses that were there.
For real quick, I don't mean to cut you off. I apologize.
No.
But let's educate some of the youngsters that don't understand what started the 92 riots.
Well, it was a buildup. In 91, there was a verdict that was handed down. It was a storekeeper. Her name, I forgot her name. But it was an older woman that shot a black teenager. And that's only because she was assaulted by her. And she was a big black teen, right? So she got assaulted. She got shot in the back of the head. And then that trial went on. And then 91, the verdict came out where the storekeeper, shop owner, she got probation. I think she got like 6 months probation or something like that.
And the storekeeper was of what nationality?
She's Korean.
Korean, okay.
Yeah, a Korean. She was a Korean grandma.
And was the black girl, was she a juvenile, an adult?
Juvenile. She was 14. Yeah.
14.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but she was a big 14. She got accused of stealing orange juice. She produced it, and then she beat up the storekeeper.
Yeah.
And then she turned around, and then the storekeeper, in a fit of rage and just kind of lost her mind, pulled out, and it was a 38 and shot her, right?
Yeah.
And then the black community got the verdict, and then they weren't happy, because she only got 6 months. So
Yeah.
it was already building at that time.
So now this it's kind of like it's war against the Asians.
Not just yet.
Okay.
But that kind of started.
planting the seed.
It's planting the seed. And then you had movies like
Menace to Society?
well, that came out in 93.
Okay, you're right.
But Boys in the Hood came out in 92, like 91.
Yeah.
And then Ice Cube came out with the song Black Korea. And Black Korea was aimed at the Korean community.
Damn.
And that incited a lot of, anger, and just, a lot of animosity towards us, as Koreans. It was no longer like, okay, that funny talking, Asian dude. It was like that Korean motherfucker, so that mentality flipped. So when Rodney King, that verdict came out, that's when it like
Hit the fan.
Yeah, fucking everybody lost their mind at that point because it's like, damn, like they beat up Rodney King and now he's being the 6 officers are being acquitted, and then it started off like there was a crowd that started forming on Florence and Normandy, and that's where you have the helicopter going around. You saw Reginald Denny getting pulled out of his truck.
Remember that, bro?
Yeah,
I was watching that.
Yeah, I was watching that too.
I was like, oh damn, bro, that was a Casey's only 32.
I wasn't born yet.
You were born?
Oh, no, it was 33 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was still a sparkling, parent's eye.
Yeah, he was still
I was in the
floating around in the
nutsack.
nutsack. he had the what do you call them things in the nutsack?
So yeah, so that small crowd on Florence and Normandy started to grow, and then that's when Reginald Denny, he got stopped, and he got pulled out of his truck, and then it blew up from there, and then everyone thought, okay, Wednesday night it's gonna blow over because their fires were starting by Wednesday evening, right? So everyone thought, okay, it's gonna blow over, but then Thursday rolls around and it just continues on, and now it's becoming more widespread, right? Now it's spreading throughout South LA and Watts and Compton, right? And then now it's slowly starting to make its way up north towards Koreatown. And then that's when the call goes out from the Korean broadcasting station asking for help. And I didn't know, because, I'm Korean, but I speak Korean as much as, I don't know, like.
As much as Casey speaks Spanish?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I dan even know there was a radio
as much
broadcast.
as I speak Spanish.
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
didn't even know there was a radio broadcast.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
All I knew was, like, my buddy calls and say, hey, man, like
You didn't get the news?
No,
Good.
he's like, you watching what's going on? I was like, yeah. He goes, well, my brother's shop is going to need some help. I said, okay, pick me up in the morning. But as I'm leaving on Friday morning, my dad's leaving too. So we both left. But we just, we have different groups that we're going to go out to. So I still don't know his story, like what he did. But I know.
Your pops.
Yeah. Because we basically we ran into each other as we were both leaving in the morning.
Yeah.
So he's packing his 38.
Yeah.
I'm walking out with my shotgun. And then we have a moment, So I talk about that in my book, where what it feels like to have that type of moment, especially with the relationship that I had with him.
And how was the relationship?
Well, like he grew up during a military dictatorship, and a lot of the guys his age that came here kind of took that rigidness with them.
Yeah, I hear about that too, bro.
Yeah, so a lot of us that grew up in homes like that with fathers, I mean, it was really strict, and it was really like you had to stay in your lane.
Is your family? I'm sorry, I just want to ask a question. Is your family from North Korea or South Korea?
South Korea.
Okay.
Yeah.
South Korea is the nicer part where you want to be at, right?
Yeah, it's the democratic. It's Seoul, and it's what
Yeah.
you see on TV now with K-pop and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, they grew up during a military dictatorship. So when they came here, they actually had a certain mindset. So most of the guys that I talked to around my age, I mean, we all have the same, similar experience growing up in that type of a household.
Yes.
So it wasn't like anything like, like me and my kids were close. We talk a lot, about all kinds of stuff. But it wasn't like that with him. It was very different.
It was like having a samurai as a father, huh?
Yeah, and it's like you can't even have a conversation, It's
Yeah.
like, and you can't talk about certain things, So it was difficult, And I think that's kind of part of like why I did what I did when I was younger,
Okay. And so that's man, I'm picturing that in my head, man, of you guys just, him coming out with a 38,
Yeah, I know,
you with
yeah.
a shotgun, kind of like a somewhat of an awkward moment. You
It
look
was
at each
totally
other,
awkward.
you know what both of you are out to go do, you
Yeah.
know? And then you said about there was a Korean broadcast that said, that shot out the alarm or the alert, hey, all Koreans, buckle down. Shit's about to go down.
Yeah,
Go help out the community of Koreans.
pretty much that's what it was.
And
Yeah.
so now here you guys go out. Here you go out.
Mm-hmm.
You're at this shop, your buddy's shop, and you're helping, and then what transpires after that?
So he basically tells us to go to this other plaza that was off of near Vermont and Olympic. There's a smaller street called New Hampshire. So there's a plaza there that he had some friends and he wanted us to check in on them. So we went there to check in on those guys and see what they're up to. And they're already moving their cars, kind of creating kind of a wall with their cars. They're blocking the entrances. And if you go there now, there's like a wrought iron green fence that they put up. This was after the riot. They put that fence up. But before that, they were just using their cars. And then they told us who was shooting at them. And they gave us a description. And then growing up in the 90s, like we know, like, okay, like if you're Mexican, you're gonna drive this type of car. If you're a Mexican gangbanger,
Yeah,
you're a
you
black
got the
gangbanger,
Regal.
yeah,
Yeah.
Chevy, Buicks, right? But if you're driving a Toyota Corolla, we already know who drives that in that top part of Koreatown, right? We knew.
And who drives that car?
MS.
MS.
So we knew, because those guys, like,
they were about the Toyota Corollas.
Yeah, those in the '90s. That's what we knew them as. That's what they drove. Because like, dude, no Chicano Mexican gangbangers gonna drive a Toyota Corolla, right? So we already knew who these guys were, and just from the description, like how they were dressed, what they looked like. So that's when, because I grew up in LA and I knew the different parts of LA, and so did my buddy, my driver. Like, we went through their hood, because Koreatown butts up against MS hood, and it's between MS and 18th Street hood. So you got 18th Street to the south, you got MS more towards the east, so, and then parts of the south as well. So we went through their hood looking for them, because we knew who was shooting at them just by the description of the car. And because the traffic was really light, like, you already knew who was out there,
Yeah.
And I talk about this in another podcast, which I know for a fact that week, a lot of scores were settled a lot of beefs were settled between a lot of the rival gangs.
Because they took advantage of the climate.
Yeah, because there's no cops.
Yeah.
Cops are pretty much non-existent. They stayed away from Koreatown, and they stayed away from all the parts that they were riding, even in Hollywood.
They stayed away.
Yeah, they stayed away. They stood down because they didn't have the manpower, right? I mean, I forgot what the number was.
I didn't know that, bro. So put us up on history right here, bro.
Yeah, they
stood down.
They stood down.
LAPD stood down.
Yeah, and that was the biggest controversy after the riots, was the fact that they weren't involved. And I understood why they did that, because when a lot of these firefighters were trying to put out these fires, they were getting shot at too. So they were shooting firefighters that were trying to put out fires. So they needed like LAPD escort to take them in there. And you have limited manpower, and you have these guys driving around trying to put out fires. You can't have them hang around, and you got different parts of the city that's being looted, and other fires are starting. It's complete chaos, right? So what Chief Daryl Gates did, who was police chief at that time, he pulled his guys back. He just said, like, we're gonna let the community handle this, or we're gonna just let the community do what it's gonna do. So we were left to fend for ourselves for that week.
Wow, bro.
Yeah.
And how and so we have a lot of people taking advantage of the situation. MS being one of them, right?
Right.
It's an opportunity to to do whatever the fuck they want to do without any police presence.
Right.
And I think I think a lot of people, a lot of different neighborhoods, gangs, so on and so forth, people that side of the fence, they absolutely took advantage. You know what I mean? Because back then, man, motherfuckers were, you see on the news, bro. I remember the news, man. I remember what's the dude's name? Reginald Denny, we talked about, what's his name?
Oh, Rodney King?
No, the dude that got pulled out of the truck.
Oh, Reginald Denny, yeah.
Reginald Denny, man. They said, oh shit, dude, I remember it to this day. They just happened to have a helicopter over that thing, right?
Yeah.
Was a helicopter? They're like, oh man, they're getting this truck driver. Oh shit, they're pulling him out. I mean, they're not saying exactly what I'm saying.
And you're probably thinking like, damn, this is not a movie. This shit's happening.
It's
for
real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so wow.
Yeah. So there was no cops.
Yeah.
So imagine like The Purge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like that. No cops. So you pretty much do what you want to do. And
do you think we should have a purge at least once a year, bro? No.
Oh, dude, it's just I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah. I don't either, bro. Even though we do, we love the movie, and we're just like, man, what if?
Makes a great movie, man. But if you're on the receiving end of that, like, no, right?
Yeah, 100%, bro.
So no, but it was that crazy. It was like there was no cops. The community is left to fend for themselves, right? And everybody's just kind of doing their thing.
Yeah. And so you said a lot of beefs were settled during this time because it was an open season. It was open game, right? And people that didn't want to have nothing to do with that knew what to do. And that's just lock your house and stay inside. But the business owners, we're talking about the Korean business owners, everyone else that they had to protect their businesses.
Right. Well, they didn't have to. That was a choice.
Okay.
Like,
did a lot not protect their businesses?
Well, I'm just saying, like, given the Korean community and population in Koreatown, like, I would say less than 10% came out.
Wow.
So
bro.
I would say it's probably like between 1% and 3% that came out.
Because the news made it, the news manipulated me in thinking that a lot of Koreans were up there on the rooftop of protecting their businesses. I mean, when there was just 10%, and they showed that 10%, and that 10% looked like a huge percentage.
Right. But
on the news.
Yeah, it's not. It was less than that, because driving through parts of Koreatown, I mean, yeah, you had guys that were manned there, but if you look at just the total population of people in Koreatown,
Yeah.
it's just a fraction. It's
Yeah.
just really a fraction. I mean, it's, you know, it's something I kind of think about too. Like, what propels someone to do that? You know, to go out. Like, especially if you don't have skin in the game, right? Like, let's say you have a business, but you're like, okay, my insurance is going to cover it. In some of these businesses, they did have insurance in Koreatown. Like the ones in South Central didn't, and they suffered the most because they couldn't get insurance carriers to insure their business because of the area they were in. So they lost everything when the fires, you know, broke out and burned their businesses. But a lot of the businesses in Koreatown had insurance. But what would propel someone to go and defend what's rightfully theirs, right? And it's something I think about. Like, it's not just a Korean thing, but it's a human thing. It's
Absolutely.
It's a thing where, you know, there's something innate in someone to want to protect what's theirs, but not just that, but the community at large, and they're willing to put themselves out there to do that. You know, and it's a very small percentage of people.
And you were a part of that small percentage of people that were out there to protect your people, your people's businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, can you share a little bit of how that, you know, exactly that was, or, you know, how long you were out there, you know, without it, you know, incriminating anybody or incriminating yourself?
I write about that in my book. I give the account of it in my book.
Okay, so they're gonna have to get the book then.
Well, yeah, I want you to buy the book.
where are they gonna be able to get the book at, bro?
Well, I'm done writing it, so I'm either gonna figure out if I'm gonna find a publisher or I'm gonna self-publish.
Okay.
Someone says like start like a Patreon or GoFundMe or something like that, crowdsource funding to get it self-published. So there's that. And then there's also, I've been hit up regarding like movie rights and whatnot. So
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't want to give too much away, but
to be continued.
Yes, I do want to say like it'll give the account in terms of what happened that week, and then there's a build up to it. He talks about my life and growing up in LA, you know, as a teen, and then what brought me into that situation. Because it's not like I just flipped the switch one day and like, okay, I'm gonna go out there, you know.
So Christian Patriot, and I see the shirt you have on. You have the 1776 We the People shirt on. Obviously, from that shirt, you voted for Trump.
Right.
Okay. How do you feel about what's going on right now with the immigration, with ICE and everything, being the fact that you were an immigrant, correct?
Right.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, bro?
You know, I think what we're seeing is just the pendulum swing the other way from the past 4 years with Biden, right? Because 4 years with Biden, everything was open, everyone came in.
Yeah.
But now we're going the other way. We're now like we're grabbing, nabbing everybody, right?
Which is potentially necessary after having 4 years of an open border.
Right.
Okay.
And I think that led to a lot of the criminal element being, you know, funneled up north from the south, you know, from different Latin American countries, even from the Middle East. I've seen videos of guys like, you know, from Iran. You've even got guys from China.
Everybody's getting deported.
Dude,
bro.
everyone's coming here too, you know?
Absolutely.
So because of that, I see why they're doing what they're doing. They're trying to move everybody out in terms of like, okay, starting with the guys with a criminal record, and then at that point, they're just anybody who's here illegally, you know? So in terms of how I feel, I mean, like we were just talking about the other Korean guy that was here.
Yeah. Justin.
Yeah, Justin, right?
Yeah.
So I saw the video where he was, you know, picked up by ICE. You know?
But Justin has a different type of situation in the sense of he got out from a murder, bro.
Yeah, I know.
He got out from a murder. So when we had him on the podcast, he was already
on the radar.
Yeah.
And he voiced his. He didn't even want me to put his. I finally put his name on it, but he didn't even want his name on the podcast. He was really, really trying to advocate for himself. Like he had signatures. Like I even did the signature for him, bro. We promoted his advocacy in the sense of trying to get him to be able to stay here. You know, he had a whole thing going for himself, and he is a changed man. Mm-hmm. Yes, he committed this heinous crime as a juvenile. You know,
yeah.
And he did the time. And parole, the board, the Department of Corrections parole board deemed him eligible for parole. They said, "Hey, you're rehabilitated. You've done enough time. Bam, we're releasing you." You know, and so, anyways, it is what it is, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like for him, hey, you know, he was going to be one of the first to go in a sense. You know, because of the criminal record.
Right.
You know,
but that's not anything new. That's been happening since like the 90s.
Yes.
They've been sending guys like back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. They had a huge deportation program for guys from MS.
Yeah.
They send them all back to El Salvador. That's why MS spread from El Salvador to all the different Latin American countries. Because that was LA's biggest export to El Salvador, which is all the MS guys that got caught, you know, and that got sent back to El Salvador.
How do you if you've seen an MS guy on the street, you know what I mean, how would you feel about that guy?
I talk about it in my book.
Ah!
I'm gonna tell you, there's a twist.
Yeah.
I tell you, like, I grew up in this city for like almost 50 years.
Was that your number one enemy in the sense since you were young?
Well, no, I didn't. Like, they weren't. You know, they
Okay.
weren't my number one enemy. I mean, I grew up with a lot of Filipino gangs,
Okay.
so we had different sets of enemies, right?
Okay.
But yeah,
Were you from a Korean neighborhood?
Yeah, I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Here
it's
we
in the
go.
book.
We're
It's
just
in the
getting to
book.
know each other right here, bro.
Right, right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So yeah.
Can that book come out yet
I was part
already?
of-
Come on.
I was part of a crew. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
You were part of a crew.
Yeah,
Okay.
so-
A militant crew.
Well, not a militant crew, but just like, you know.
A crew that's going to stand for the Koreans and stand
no.
for the crew.
No, not anything like that. Don't paint me in that picture because I'm not like
Well,
that. But
this is you now, and we all have a past.
Yeah.
I mean, a past, necessarily doesn't find who we are right now.
Right.
Because who I am now from who I was back in the day is two totally different people.
right.
And
And I'll be honest, I'm not proud of my past. I've done some shit.
Yeah.
And I talk about that in the book.
Okay.
So, but it just, it's the thing is with LA is like you're not tied to people because of ethnicity. You're tied to people because of the neighborhoods you grew up in. So if you had like Korean dudes, Mexican dudes in one neighborhood that grew up together and stuff, they're going to be tight because of the neighborhood, not because, oh yeah, he's, because he's Latino and, whatever. It's the neighborhood that ties a lot of these guys together.
let me ask you a question. So if you were in Koreatown getting some fucking there's so many good Korean spots, man.
Like Korean barbecue.
Korean barbecue. Thank you, man. Bro, my girl, number one favorite food. My kids, like, we cooked it. You know what I mean? Bro, it's the best, bro. It's the best. You know what I mean? Say you're with your family and pull up to a Korean barbecue spot. ICE pulls up and they pulling your family out. Does that make you feel different about the administration? Or are you just like, hey, man, I told you to get your papers?
That's tough, right? That's tough.
It's tough, right?
Right. But I think it because like you have to differentiate between your family ties and the laws of the land, right? So if your family came here in a way that's not deemed legal, right? So you've automatically broken the laws of the land. And even though you may have been here, you've been a contributing member of society, like you actually jumped the line on someone.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. You jump the line, right? And then now, you're asking the federal government, U.S. government, to make an exception for you because of that, which in intent and purposes for me, it almost sounds like the whole student loan forgiveness thing, where, if you went to college and you got student loans and the government will pay that off for you. Well, what about the guy that didn't go, right? Or what about the guy that went to college and he paid for it all himself, right? What about those guys, right? So I think it's incentivizing a behavior that's not in accordance with like the rules, right? So if that's the case, then if it was my family member that ICE came out, I'd have to be like, shit, like, yeah, they came here illegally, so we're gonna have to deal with that repercussions of what's going on now.
Yes.
But would I be mad at the administration? No, because that's what he platformed.
But
on.
would you be mad at the ICE agents coming in masked, no names on there, and just ripping your family out of car
Well,
or
the
something?
thing is, I've been doxxed already. And
What is the definition of being doxxed?
Well, that's when your private information is made public.
Yeah, okay.
Like where you live, who your family members are, where your wife works, where your kids go to school, all that stuff. So
how do you know when you've been doxxed? Or is that just a thing that just happens within the government, right?
No, well, that happens online too. Like
Online.
there's like from what I read, there's Reddit, posts and threads that have like ICE information, agent information. They'll try to figure out who these ICE agents are, and then make that public,
Okay.
right? And then they'll basically, make that, they'll send that out through X or through Instagram. There was a guy I'd say about 3 weeks ago that was doing that. He was basically talking about where ICE was, and that's where where they were located, what hotels they were staying at.
And so
With
that's
people, yeah.
so that's the definition of being doxxed.
Yeah, I would say that's just doxing the location, but then the actual doxing is like someone taking your private information, like your kids, where you work, where you live, and making that public.
That's a motherfucker right there. I ain't
It
good
is.
with that, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm
that's
not good
what
with that.
that's what that is. That's
Yeah.
why they're covered up, and I totally get that. They're not trying to be like mysterious. They're basically covering their identity because they're doing a job and they don't want the blowback from it because of the job that they're doing.
They got to protect their family in a sense.
Yeah.
I get it, bro. I get it. I see both sides of the fence. You
I
know?
do too. I do too, and I see the human aspect of it too. And I know there's a lot of Asian Americans like myself that are kind of split. And we have mixed feelings about what's going on. But at the same time, we know that it's one of those things where you either pull off the bandit lightly or you got to take it off quick. And that's what this administration is doing. They're not going to relent. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. And the really fucked up thing is that because of that, you got these protests happening in LA, right? And it's costing the city and it's costing the county. And because of that, we have all these budget shortfalls with the city, with the county. They're asking the state of California to, fill the gaps of these shortfalls, but state of California is asking the federal government for funding as well. And because state of California now is allowing the whole transgender in sports thing, like they may not get federal funding either because of that. Because Trump specifically said, I'm going to withhold federal funding if you still allow guys to compete in women's sports.
Which I agree with.
Yeah.
In the sense of, hold the funding for, just fix that.
Yeah.
Because I got daughters, bro.
Right, exactly.
Shoot.
And City Council just approved on Tuesday a $17.3 million loan to cover the costs.
Overtime, right?
Yeah,
For LAPD.
for LAPD of the ICE protests.
Yeah. And so the more these protests go on, the more it's going to cost the city.
And if it costs the city, then it costs taxpayers.
Costs us.
Yeah. So we're basically paying for that.
Right.
We're always fucked at the end. The pawns are always fucked.
Son of a bitch, man.
God damn it.
Yeah, but it's important is the leadership that we elect into these places. I mean, when times are good, like someone could say a really nice like tagline or slogan and get voted into office, but then when the shit hits a fan, like for example, like earlier this year with the fires, then you can see the type of leadership that we have.
Yeah,
Like,
horrible.
Yeah, we got
Karen Bass, Newsom.
Right.
They didn't fill the reservoirs because of a certain species or something that was.
That's bullshit.
Fuck out of here,
That's
bro.
bullshit.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
You know what? I want to say something, man. So I was working in a. I'm not going to say where.
Okay.
But I was working. I'm a journeyman electrician, right? State of California.
Okay.
IBW Local 11.
Yeah.
And we're building up these buildings in a campus for the kids, right? Mm-hmm. And we couldn't continue on the first. So there's 3 buildings we're building, and we couldn't. So it's phases, bro. You know what I mean? Bop, 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 and then we go back to the first one because we're now on the next level. But we couldn't get to the first one, the next level, because there was a bird right there in a bird's nest.
Mm.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Like that. Yeah.
Bro, get that bird and relocate it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Pick the bird up and put it somewhere else.
Right.
But we couldn't
Right.
continue on that building, and there's hundreds of construction workers. And I think that's basically a left thing, a liberal thing. That I don't know. I don't get that.
Because you got these dumbass politicians,
Environmentalists.
that don't want to tackle.
Environmentalists said, the environmentalists came and go ahead.
And they don't want to tackle the real problems, so they want to tackle some little bullshit problem like, we got to protect these birds, because that's easier to pass than it is to tackle like, how much do we fund the police, right? The firefighters, like the pension programs that we have, like are we still getting the same amount of return on these pensions that we should be, that we can pay these guys out when they retire?
Homelessness.
Homelessness is an industry. I mean, if people are asking like, when is it ever going to go away? It's never going to go away.
It's never going to go away, bro.
Because every 6 months there's a new nonprofit organization that comes out and says we're going to help the homeless. Now, if your business, because the nonprofit is kind of a business, is predicated on a problem, you never want that problem to go away. It's a profit for the problem, right? And that's what homelessness is. So that's
profit for the problem.
Yeah, and so that's why it's not going to go away. We're going to have that for a while until somebody says, you know what, fuck that, we're done.
Well, that's across the board and everything, even the prison system. Rehabilitation. We need crime because this employs so many, correctional officers, so on and so forth. We need homelessness because of all the rehabilitations and everything else it employs,
or
right?
drugs too, yeah.
Drugs too. I mean, it all goes hand in hand. Regardless of what side you're on, you got to understand that, be able to.
Drugs give the police jobs. A crime gives the police jobs. It's like, It's
so
like,
once you
what the
see it
fuck?
as like it's not a problem, but it's actually there's a profit behind it, then you realize it's always going to be with us, in some form or fashion.
So,
So we're just fucked, Tony.
yeah.
Well, we got to try to get leadership that's going to unfuck us a little bit, right? Because it's a big enough shithole as it is. it's easy to get idiots to make it a bigger shithole. We just got to find people that's going to make it less of a shithole.
Yeah, because it's always going to be a shithole.
Yeah, it is. I mean, let's just be honest. Like LA, Skid Row's been Skid Row since I was a kid, and it hasn't changed since. So we're just going to say, okay, that's always going to be part of LA culture. That's always going to be there. But how do we make it less of that?
The drugs just got stronger and more accessible.
Well, yeah, with fent.
Like,
I mean, I thought crack in the 90s was bad.
Yeah.
But now you got fent,
Crazy.
So it gets crazier and crazier. But it's all this stuff to dehumanize someone, and to take away their dignity and who they are, because a lot of people are, they're pretty broken as it is, so you just capitalize on that, and then unfortunately politicians make money from that.
Yeah, man.
So 250 years of America. We're celebrating this 4th of July.
Oh, right.
250
Oh, and
years.
there's another protest for the 4th of July.
Did you see that?
Yeah, and
And so why are they protesting the 4th of July, Casey? Or
I think
Tony?
I saw the flyer. It says like no 4th of July independence or something like that, and just it's like a lefty thing.
Yeah, and I heard that too. Matter of fact,
Certain cities have also canceled their fireworks shows as well.
Like what the fuck? Yeah.
And they're basically like suggesting people don't go to the public firework display in their city, essentially.
Stop being
Basically,
American.
To protest that and just stay with your family indoors or something.
self-deport. January 2021 J6 DC Taurus. Were you actually there?
I was there.
Wow. Tell me about that, bro.
Yeah. I wasn't. I started a Twitter account in November of 2020,
Okay.
and that's only because of the election results. So we went through COVID. COVID from like March, everything started locking down, right? And then we had the election coming up in November. So I felt like, okay, if Trump wins the second term, then all the lockdowns, mandates, all that bullshit we're going through is going to go away. So then, November comes around, we got the election results, and then, we have the videos that came out. And I'm sure it's out there, people have seen it where they're putting pizza boxes over windows to stop the observers from counting, and then you got the ballots coming out from under tables, like suitcases of ballots, and you got the counts being all weird with the voting system.
So do you believe it's rigged then? It was rigged?
That's why I was there.
Okay.
Because that's what the call was. Trump made the call like, hey, we want to peacefully protest the election results and just kind of make our voices heard. So what the news, the mass media won't, mainstream media won't show you are wide shots of the Capitol, during when he was speaking in front of the Washington Monument.
And you were there?
I was there.
Okay.
There had been at least like a mil to maybe 1.5 million people that were there.
And what did we miss on the wide shots?
Just the mass amount of people that were there. That's what you miss. They only show you the close-in shots where shit's getting crazy on the Capitol steps, and there's tear gas being thrown, and you got like the whole Ashley Babbitt trying to go in. They show those tight shots, but they don't pan it out and show you just the wide variety of people that were there.
Was that the dude with the horns on his head?
Yeah, that's part of it. They focus on that too.
Yeah. I thought the Ashley that wasn't his name. His name was something else. But go ahead.
Yeah,
brother.
but
He was
yeah.
the like MAGA something.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was like MAGA something.
Right. I think his name is Chansley or something like that.
Okay.
But anyway, they don't show you the wide shot of just the amount of people that were there.
Yeah.
And from all the different states that were there as well. And you had like the Vietnamese independence flag, like because Vietnam is a communist country, right? So you have like the Vietnamese from Westminster and other Vietnamese that came out. They were holding their flag is a yellow flag with I think it's like 3 red stripes or something across. You had a variety of different groups that were there supporting the president back in 2021.
So you don't believe it was just all the way we see it? And speaking, I'm glad you brought that up. They showed a narrow shot, and basically the narrow shot could potentially look like a bunch of white nationalists.
Right.
But
No.
you're telling us that there was an array of different ethnic groups there.
Yeah.
With flags.
Right. With different flags.
And I don't know if you guys saw this on the screen there, but the FBI report alleges that China mass-produced fake United States driver's license for purpose of voter fraud.
Yeah.
The FBI just declassified them.
Well, I mean, BLM back in 2020.
Yeah.
Like they were funded by 2 groups. One is Freedom Road, which is a socialist organization. There was another party. I think it's I forgot what it is off the top of my head, but they had indirect funding from the Chinese Communist Party through these, organizations here in America, in the U.S. because a lot of their people from these organizations in the U.S. went to China to, shake hands and get shown stuff, but they're being influenced, right? And then as they come here, they get funding, indirect funding sources.
What do they call it? Like proxy wars? Is that considered a proxy war?
Well, yeah, because these guys are actively trying to, destabilize like the norms that we have now.
You're talking about like China.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they can't confront us directly with military might. Right?
Yeah.
We kick their ass. But the way to do that is to basically, do it from within.
Yeah.
Right. And then like get the leadership involved. Good example would be Newsom when Xi Jinping came here.
Cleaned up the streets of San Francisco.
And then he lined up like communist Chinese flags where he was going to, go down. I mean, no other dignitary, from any country got that kind of, welcome that he got.
And why did Newsom give him that welcome?
Well, because he probably gets part of his funding from him, and there's ties.
Nice.
Right? So
That's crazy to even think about.
This guy during COVID, he kept his restaurant open. He told all of us to stay indoors while he's meeting with medical executives. There's pictures of him doing that.
It was at French Laundry in Napa Valley.
So
with no mask on,
right?
Yeah.
There's videos of Pelosi getting her hair done. When everyone else is like, locked indoors.
They just really think we're stupid, don't they?
It was a fucked up time.
And Pelosi is related to Newsom, correct?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a really fucked up time, and that's kind of what sent me out too. Without COVID, without the election fraud, I wouldn't be sitting here with you today. I'd be in obscurity. I'd be living my life doing what I was doing before. But because of what happened and because of what I saw coming, especially in LA, how they were being so draconian with mandates and with masks, and they wanted you to have that vaccine ID card, and I remember that.
Yeah,
right?
I had to get that through my union. If in my IBW Local 11 there's a lot of like a lot of my bosses have been on the right side, right? But my union is a Democratic union,
Right. They don't serve you guys. Most of the unions now, they don't serve the interest of the employees or people that are working. They serve their own interest.
It's money.
Yeah, like LAUSD.
Yeah.
Right. Teachers union. Right. The teachers union. They don't serve the kids. They serve the interest of the teachers. And they work with LAUSD to make sure, like when they were doing the whole remote learning, they wanted to stretch that thing out as long as they could, and they wanted the kids to keep wearing masks. But when you got like 3, 4, 4 or 5-year-old kids wearing masks, they can't read facial expressions, right? And that's kind of how you learn as when you're growing older, like how to read someone, body language, facial expressions. So that they pushed that learning back for these kids by at least a couple of years, 2-3 years.
Absolutely.
And then my daughter, she went to go volunteer at her elementary school when she got to junior high because she wanted to help. She did dual immersion Spanish, so she speaks Spanish as well. So she went to go volunteer with a teacher that she was really close with, and she came back and she told me, like, Dad, like these kids, they don't know how to add or multiply, or they're just so behind, and they don't care, they really don't care.
That union's been alive for how long, and they haven't got teachers' raises for like. It tells you there. Mm-hmm. It tells you there. I have a couple questions for you, Tony. So,
okay.
Why do you think so many Asian Americans have stayed silent in American politics, and what needs to change?
That's a good question. I think there's some that are out there.
Yeah, we've seen that.
Yeah, there are some there, but not
recently.
Yeah, but not to the extent that maybe some of us would want to see more of. But if you look at us as demographically, we're only 7% of the population in the U.S. Right. So the fact that there are some of us out there, I think, is huge. But hopefully, with everything that's going on, we see more that are coming out. More that's going. But politics is ugly, man. I work with people that campaigned during the last election. That worked on the Elder campaign when he was trying to run for governor.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just even on the conservative side, you got these consultants that are just making money for doing, really, I consider like really not much, So the money gets funneled in every place but where it really needs to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you always like this politically, or did the 1992 riots shape like who you are today?
I wasn't always like this, but it wasn't the 92 riots. Because after the riots were over, I went back to living life the way I was living. Being a 19-year-old kid.
Okay.
I think what shaped it was in 2001 was 9/11.
Oh, wow.
I think 9/11 shaped it. because I noticed discrepancies, and then I started asking questions. Like, how did they find the passports of these, hijackers so quickly? Like, they supposedly fell from the plane and landed on the sidewalk and someone happened to find them.
Yeah. How?
And then you see these buildings go down, and if you've watched enough videos of controlled demolition, there's a lot of similarities with that. Then you find out about something called thermite, and then you also find out, like, the biggest insurance policy was taken out on
What
these.
happened with Building 7? I mean,
Yeah, that too.
how did that
right?
just randomly get demolished?
Well, not just that, but they knew it was coming down before it went down, because you got the whole BBC reporter, that
Yeah.
video where she's talking about, the building fell and it's still up and then finally falls behind her, right,
Yeah.
on a live shot. So there are just so many different discrepancies that it just created a rabbit hole that I just kind of went down and started exploring stuff.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get back to the January 6th. So when initially Trump's message was in front of the White House.
It's called the eclipse.
Okay, the eclipse.
Yeah, or the ellipse, or eclipse, but it's in front of the Washington Monument. It's like
Where the water's at and everything.
not the water.
I've never been out there, bro. So
I went out there. I want to go out there as a tourist with my family, man. I ended up going out there being part of this whole protest thing,
And so, okay. So my question is from there
Then we walked to the Capitol.
the Capitol,
Right.
And so, what was your thoughts as you are witnessing in real time the outrage of these J6 riders, known as the J6 riders, right, entering into the Capitol, breaking windows? I mean,
Well, the thing is, like, I didn't know, like, because they had jammers, by the Capitol building, so you couldn't send out data on your phone. You can make calls, but I couldn't upload onto Twitter.
Okay.
So they were jamming or limiting our data streams, right? So we couldn't send stuff out. We can send out pictures and videos. So the only thing we can do is get calls. And then that's when one of my good friend calls me and says, "Hey, did you know they're inside the Capitol?" I go, "What are you talking about?" Like, yeah, there's been shots fired. So I didn't know about it until, like, he called and we were outside. I thought he was talking about the tear gas, grenades that they were throwing into the crowd.
Yeah.
And that's what was popping off. But
and you were there with your kids?
No, I was there. No, I didn't go with my
Okay.
kid. Dude,
Yeah.
I went by myself.
I thought you- yeah.
No, I went there because, like, in October, there were videos that came out from the Trump rally where people were getting accosted in D.C. by Antifa. So I was there because I thought we were going to get down with these guys, in
And you were
DC.
ready to get down
Yeah,
with
we were good because I was pissed.
Yeah.
I don't like it when, like, we may not all have the same opinions on stuff.
Correct.
But you have a right to voice that opinion.
Absolutely.
Right? But then when a group comes and tells you that you can't, and they start harassing you and physically assaulting you, right? That's intimidation. And that prevents anyone who sees that and there's no pushback, they're going to have second thoughts about going out and voicing that same opinion that, that person may have had that was accosted. And that concerns me because that becomes a form of control. It becomes a form of intimidation and control. And then if you grew up in LA, you know what that's like.
Yeah.
So that pissed me off, and I went out there knowing full well that, like, shit might go down. But I didn't go out there, meeting anyone or knowing anyone. But I had a feeling like there's going to be enough guys out there that I'm probably going to talk to and get to know, and
Like-minded people.
yeah, like-minded people, and we'll
Yeah.
probably just
I have a quick question about that.
Do
Why
a
do you,
thing.
why do you think the media calls ICE protests violent but paints the January 6th as patriotism in certain circles, or vice versa? Do you think it's about who's protesting or what they're protesting?
I think it's who's reporting now. It's a perspective of who's reporting it. Because from January 6th, when I came out back to LA in 2021, there was a huge brawl at City Hall that broke out between Antifa and a lot of the conservative patriots, that group. And they wrote articles about me, the Huffington Post, Daily Mail, LA Times, and they painted me as J6 insurrectionist. I've been called white supremacist, all
Yeah.
those things. So it really depends who's writing the paper and who's actually giving the narrative, right? There are some that are going to be, like, unbiased, but that's going to be really hard because now, like, you have either a paper that leans to the left or a paper that kind of leans to the right.
Yeah, like CNN's under fire right now with Hegseth, what's his name?
Hegseth?
Yeah. Did I say his name right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Because of the way CNN is reporting on the Iran situation with the B-2 bombers and the
Yeah.
pilots, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're under fire in regards to potentially giving false information and rooting for obviously the failure of Donald Trump.
Right.
You know,
But they've been like that since his first term.
yeah, forever, right?
Right.
It is what it is. Yeah.
So it's like you kind of come to expect that from CNN. You know,
Yeah.
CNN, NPR is the same thing. You know, they.
But why can't you just report what you see and what it is? You know, I mean, why?
Because everybody has an agenda. You know,
Yeah.
to a certain extent. You know, like the media, depending on which side it's on, has a particular agenda. You know?
Absolutely. I mean, that's easy math, right?
Yeah. So, just gotta take it for what it's worth. I mean, I like following guys like just regular guys like you, other guys that just like, hey, this is what's going on, and they're trying to remain unbiased as best as they can. You know, and they're looking at both sides because that takes common sense, right? To be able to understand both sides of an issue, right, and try to come to some sort of a conclusion where you're not trying to be influenced by either side and say, okay, this may be the better way to go because it's, you know, this looks like it's the right way to go. But a lot of times people are very emotional when it comes to politics.
All the time.
Yeah. So you know, it's like, you know, my side can do no wrong no matter what they do.
And that's where I have a problem with someone. If you can be on the right, you can be on the left, and it pisses me off when people have that position, right? They stand that position, you know, and it kind of like happens like that in the gang world too. You know, turn a blind eye. You know, it is what it is. It's on our team. You know?
Exactly.
And you know, sometimes it benefits you, sometimes it doesn't. You know, but it just is what it is. It's two like gangs in a sense, the right and the left. You know, and
But like they refuse to even say conservatives refuse to say that like ICE is basically a form of tyranny. Like how can they not see that? Like it's clear. But I don't know. It's like they're for like rights, but then when they see people's rights get taken, they're like, oh, but it was somebody else's problem. It was because of Joe Biden. They could like can't. I don't. It just really gets me mad sometimes. It's like they refuse to see the other side because they're in that fucking tribal mentality, gang mentality. Basically, they're on one side for life.
It's also who pays them, right?
Yeah.
You're not gonna go against the people that pay you.
100%.
So there's also that.
Especially when you're living fucking super well off, right?
Right. Well, a lot of these conservative talking heads are like that, you know, and that's kind of on Twitter or on X. There's a split now between a lot of these big conservative talking heads, and then you got these other accounts that are calling them out for stuff, you know. And the biggest thing right now is the whole thing with Israel and Iran.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we know that AIPAC, which is an Israeli, you know, lobby, has, you know, deep ties within Congress. You know, they buy out politicians on both sides, right? So we know that's an issue, right? And they're the only country that actually has that, you know, in America, where our politicians, to a certain degree, put Israel ahead of America. You know, so we got that issue, but nobody wants to talk about that because, you know, a lot of the pay is derived from, you know, people that are tied to Israel, or they have dual citizenship, you know, American and Israeli citizenship, you know.
And there's a law that passed in California where you can't even like criticize at some extent Israel specifically.
Well, I want to see that tested one day, you know, because that's going to work its way up to the Supreme Court, you know, because I think anti-Semitism is a term that only applies to like Jews, but you don't have anti-Hispanicism, anti-Asianism, or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, so if we're truly a country that upholds the First Amendment, none of that should apply. We shouldn't have that distinction. You know, it should be like, you know, you can say whatever the fuck you want, you know, and, you know, you have the right to say it. As long as you're not, like, physically assaulting me, like, fuck it. You have your opinion, I have mine, right? There shouldn't be a law that determines, like, what you can say and cannot say. I mean, you should truly be able to speak your mind.
So
no matter how crazy that might sound sometimes.
No, 100%. But being the fact that you are, you know, a Trump supporter, he has a problem. The administration has a problem within these universities that are pro-Palestine, so on and so forth, and they're trying to basically defund certain universities that are promoting that.
Right.
But you feel the opposite.
No,
they should.
I think they should defund these universities. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
Because a lot of these, like the Middle East, the issue right now between Israel and Iran, that's being on the Palestinian side is being infiltrated by leftists, you know, and they're trying to kind of hijack and move that movement, in their direction where they're saying like, yeah, it's about, they're trying to push like soft socialism with that as well. So that's the problem with that is like there's no clear distinction, right? Like, I support, because I'm a Christian, and I support Palestinian Christians because they're getting bombed too in Gaza, right?
Yeah.
So I have a problem with that. But at the same time, I also know that there's a segment of the U.S. population that's, liberal leftists that are supporting, the Palestinians because of that, but also because they're trying to push their agenda, leftist agenda, and then you got another segment of the population that has like this hatred of Jews. So they're jumping on that bandwagon as well, so it's just convoluted, and that's why in that situation, I tend to kind of like not get involved with that because and plus it's not our fight. We're not even supposed to even be there. We already spent so much time in Iraq and Afghanistan because of 9/11, and then people found out when we were going to war in Iraq that it was just all bullshit. Like we didn't really have to be there. So
weapons
now,
of mass destruction.
Exactly.
Wow, it
right?
seems like they're just
and then
printing the same newspaper again.
Yellow cake uranium that they were supposed to find and all this other stuff, but we just went there and it was running pretty decently as it was under Saddam, but now kind of a shithole.
I think Trump said in recent times something about that Saddam Hussein should have never been killed because he would have been a better leader right there. Because then when you kill that guy, then now you got a new, like some type of radicalist individual that's stepping up.
Like the Libyan president, Gaddafi, right?
I mean, yeah, that was like, that
was really fucked up what they did to him. But
shoved it up his ass?
That, and plus he kept because Libya was on the northern part of Africa. He kept a lot of the migrants from going into Europe, and he even said that because I'm keeping the migrants in check for Europe. So once they took him out, like the floodgates opened, and that's why now like none of Europe looks like Europe anymore. They're all you got all these different ethnicities that are from North Africa that are all flooded in there.
It also seemed like that's crazy though, because it's seems like once countries decide that they don't want to, they want to nationalize something that's a resource that American corporations profit off of, they somehow need liberating.
Yeah, that's code, right?
Yeah,
that's code. Like we got to go in there and take their shit.
Yeah, they're trying to nationalize their oil so they make money instead of our AM, PM, whatever ARCO.
Yeah, we got to show them how to do it because they're not doing it right.
Yeah, they need freedom now, actually. Yeah. And
yeah, but I'm not trying to blackpill anybody. I think there's still a lot of good people out there that are trying to do good things. That are trying to move the needle in a direction that's going to help the country, help our country, right? Because you have kids, I have kids. I can't be blackpilled. Maybe like shit. What am I telling my kids? Oh, good luck, man. Once I'm gone, like big old shit pile's yours. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I we got to try to do things that's positive, even no matter how small it is, because why stop fighting? You got to keep pushing back, keep fighting.
Did you ever feel any racism when you were out there at January 6th within some of those conservatives on the right? No, they embraced you like that.
Yeah, it was cool because we were going around asking everybody where they were from, what state.
Yeah, and
then we found out we were like the furthest out, California.
Okay.
Everybody was from more around that area, like Michigan, West Virginia, Wisconsin, So, yeah, it was really cool, man. It was kind of like a block party, but it was cold. It was really cold, man, But everyone had a cool vibe about them. You had different, nationalities, Asians, Hispanic, old, young, you had babies in strollers. You had, that's what they don't show. It was just a wide gamut of different types of people. It wasn't just like, oh, it's got to be all the white supremacists that are all there. No, it's not. It was just America that was represented that day.
Is within the Asian community in Los Angeles? What side do the majority lean on?
I think it's generational. I think the younger generation is more on the left. So the older guys like myself are probably on the right, more on the right.
Even though you were probably raised on the left.
Right. I voted for Obama.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll admit to that, and that was a mistake on my part. But I'll admit to that. But
who was the option besides Obama? Was it?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, I forget too, man.
Yeah.
I wanted him to be president because I just thought he's a half of a black man, representation of a black man, and to me, I thought it was a cool thing, man.
It was John McCain.
Yeah.
John McCain.
But
okay.
Look at the black community. They haven't changed. And then I'll give you another example, like fucked. Maxine Waters.
Yeah.
Right? She was a congressional senator, back in '92, and then in 2020 with BLM. Same person.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the community hasn't changed, hasn't like moved up or stepped up or done stuff. You know what I mean? I mean, a lot of these politicians, all they do is basically just hold office, and they enrich themselves, they enrich the people around them, right? But it's the community that suffers. The community doesn't really progress, as we would like for it to progress, So you have that, and then you have the same people being blamed for these problems that they say like it's because of white supremacy, like in El Monte, they had a stop the whole Stop Asian Hate thing. That was, they were trying to piggyback off the BLM. Like we protested. I went with some of my guys, and we counter protested those things because they were saying it's because of white supremacy is why there's Asian hate. Yeah, I mean,
let's be honest. Those Asians were getting jacked by black people.
Right. And this is El Monte, and I'm like, ooh, and they were saying white supremacy. Like, this is El Monte. Like, there's hardly any white people here. It's just like Hispanics.
Our blacks, it's all Hispanics.
Yeah, Hispanics and Asians. I mean,
that's all it is. Yeah,
it's just crazy, But
And they employ all the Hispanics in El Monte.
yeah, so it's like, who are you trying to hate on? Like, it's a non-existent like enemy that you're creating. It's like crazy.
It's the way of the world, though, right?
Well,
Opposition or someone to hate on, or
it was more like a class thing that they're happening. It was obviously poor demographic people, obviously going for someone who obviously they saw was a target could get some squeeze some money out of
yeah,
them.
but the way of the world is to deceive you. It's deception, right?
Yeah.
It's to make you fight an enemy that's not truly your enemy. You guys are probably on the same team, but because of whatever, like misconception or you've been misled, you think that they're your enemy, So I think that's the biggest thing.
Do we ever move from that?
Yeah, I think you can.
Is the future gonna instill more control within the communities? With technology and everything like that, tracking devices,
Probably AI. They're doing facial recognitions now too.
Like,
So-
are we moving in a good direction or a bad direction?
Bad direction.
Yeah, probably
It's pretty easy.
more controlled. I think as like they set up more cameras and they're doing more facial recognitions. They'll probably try to do like soft credits. Like China has the whole social credit scoring system, right? So
Well, how does that work? Social credit scores, as a whole?
yeah, as a whole, like you have a social credit score.
Yeah.
So let's say you go help some old lady across the street, right? And the camera picks that up, so you pick up like 5 points.
Oh, that's
right?
nice.
Right?
I don't know
let's say-
exactly if it
crossing
works.
ladies all
Does
day.
it really work like that, Tony, or is that Black Mirror?
Well,
I thought it works like paying your bills
No, they do
and
that.
like stuff, though.
you keep, because I keep track. I don't watch really a lot of sports. I keep track of world news and global,
Yeah.
stuff happening. But yeah, and then let's say you litter, right? Then you lose like 10 or 15 points because of that. Yeah, it's totally like Black Mirror, But yeah, they have a scoring system there where, because if your score is low, you can't take the high-speed train. You got to take that slow train, which is going to take you like 2 days instead of like 4 hours to get home or something.
Because you've been a bad citizen.
Because you've been a bad citizen, according to them, right? And that's a crazy part, because the whole thing with socialism, communism, is that like a lot of these young people don't realize like they're putting people into power that's going to be a very minority elite.
10-minute warning.
That they're not voted in. They're just kind of placed in there, kind of like North Korea, Venezuela. Any sort of top-down approach where you can't vote or you're told to vote a certain way. Yeah, you'll always have this small elite minority that's going to control everything.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. Mm-hmm. I didn't know we were going to go so hard in politics on this right
I
here.
didn't know. Man, time flew by, man.
Yeah, time flew by, man. And Mr. Tony Moon, I appreciate you just stopping by and chopping it up with us, man.
I enjoy this. I mean, I enjoy like talking to like locals, and that's what we are. We're all locals here.
Absolutely, we're neighbors, man.
Yeah.
And these conversations are necessary.
Yeah, we have to have these hard conversations because the politicians won't have them, and the big talking heads won't have them. So it's up to us, like just regular people, just got to have these types of conversations, because that way you educate yourself, in a different viewpoint or perspective, and that in turn, hopefully you educate your kids as well, And I think that's the thing that we need to really focus in on is like educating our kids, the legacy, because you have stories, I have stories,
Yeah.
right, and these stories should be shared with our kids as they age appropriately. You share certain things with them, so that way they understand who they are, where they're from. The roots that they have with this city, with LA, and how they're all tied together with everybody here.
Absolutely. And education is super, super key, but it's just it's just a trip in regards to sometimes for low income, finding the funds for a proper education. You know what I mean? They just kind of like, the way it's designed. Keep the poor, and the rich is obviously going to get into those universities from, generational wealth and so on and so forth. I mean,
but even still, it's not just about wealth. It's about just knowing the history of like where you come from, where you've been, and just the trajectory of the country as well. And you don't have to be rich to understand that, because there's a lot of people that have money that are clueless. I mean, COVID proved that. I mean, you can have money, but you can still be clueless to what's happening around you. That's why, like a lot of these people, they masked up, got the card, took several jabs, just complied,
I always thought Asians were ahead of the game with the mask, because even before COVID, you would see Asian ladies, older ladies, and they would have the mask. I said, man, Asians know something that we don't know, But I think it's just maybe common biology or chemistry. I don't know what it is, bro, but there's particles in the air.
Yeah,
maybe sometimes you don't want to breathe the shit, right?
And then they're probably sick themselves. That's why they're trying to like keep everybody, from getting sick. Or like sometimes like in Asia, you see the masked up, it's because of pollution. Because, like the air isn't as clean, there as it is here in certain parts of Asia. It's like China. China has really the worst air pollution ever.
Where do you think we're going to be in the next 10 years right here in California?
Oh, dude, I don't know, man. I'm just trying to make it through the week. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, like every day something's popping off, something's different, so.
Do you ever get tired of that roller coaster ride mentally? That it's always something, it's another thing, bro. Like it distracts us from this. Now we're over here. Now, B-2 bombers are dropping bombs on nuclear sites in Iran, and the next, bro, we went from COVID to this, to that, to the,
right.
It really just like, and I've been on it, bro. I've been on it. Like the first thing bro, I'd never watched news for all the years on the streets, the penitentiary.
Right.
Give a fuck about it. I was focused on what was going on in the streets.
Right.
This bubble of a life, And now, I'm 48 years old, grown, and then since COVID, I have watched the news religiously.
Yeah.
That's
good.
And but I just like, and then my 80-year-old pops. I know you got to go, but I want to end it with this. My 80-year-old pops, man. Every time he comes, like, put the news on, because he don't have a TV at his house with cable and everything, right? He old school. He got the bunny rabbit ears and stuff, So I put him on the Fox News and all the news networks, and he's loving it. He's right there with popcorn, he's soaking that shit up. But he came, and I was just like, that's it with the news.
Well,
I'm putting a movie on for you.
I think, I have a sense of humor about stuff.
Yes.
So I like laughing about things. I see the craziness of it, and it makes me laugh sometimes, because I think people are funny, and just human patterns and behavior make me laugh. And I think the second part is like my faith. I'm a Christian. I have faith, and I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the promise, and that's what I lean into as well. And I know that at the end of it, God's in control, So no matter what happens to me, what happens to this country, it's all part of His bigger plan, And I submit myself to that. And because of that, that's what gets me through the day, and that's what gives me my sense of humor too, and I can laugh about it.
Absolutely. Well, shout out to all the non-believers that are pulling their hair out right now. Yeah. You got to have a core belief, man, to buckle down and stay the course, a foundation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Everybody give it up for Tony Moon. Cool. Casey, don't end this, because I want you, after Tony gives all his plugs, I want you to run our ads for us, my boy. Of
course.
But Tony, let everybody know how they can support you.
I have a book coming out, so buy my book. It's geared towards the 16 to about 32-year-old crowd, because they weren't alive or don't remember the riots.
Yeah.
They also don't remember a time in LA where it's different than it is now. So I kind of go through that, like late 80s, early 90s, of what life was like, growing up at that time. So hopefully it connects. My kids read it, so they like it. They thought it was really great and entertaining, and my son tripped out because like I have ties, to LA, and I showed him some old videos and stuff. He goes like, no shit, like you knew that guy and stuff, and I was like, yeah. So
it was about that life, son.
Yeah, it's about that life. So yeah, and they're totally like, they knew I talked about it, but they didn't like, the book really kind of fleshes it out. So that's how they can support me. Like, buy my book.
Absolutely. Hey, everybody give it up for Tony Moon. And your Instagram is, and Twitter?
Roof Korean 7.
Okay, on both?
Yeah, on both.
Make it easy.
And what about your combat training?
Yeah, that's it's a gym in Highland Park. I wear several hats, so I do that. I do mortgage lending as well. That's a finance side of me. But the other side, that's more of a work of passion. The mixed martial arts that I teach, You know, I teach guys that do private security, law enforcement, you know, guys that want to compete, and then just people that want, like, learn how to, I don't want to say defend themselves, because they're like, what do you teach, self-defense? No, I teach people to kick ass, you know, so that's pretty much what it is.
Maybe one of these days we can, we can get together and shoot a vlog or something like that.
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, of some training, man.
Yeah, let me know.
Promote what you're doing at the same time. Give little fucking Casey some skills, bro. You know what I mean? 'Cause
We were
he
talking about that
He
before
pulls
you-
hair and scratches, bro.
We were talking about that before he showed up. He's like, can I use my phone as a weapon? I go, it's a possibility. Yeah, you can.
He's like, oh, we got a Korean man in here. He knows some secret shit. Tell me how I kill with this phone. He's like, you gotta hit him in the throat with it.
Yeah, Tony gave me his card right here.
Oh, that's sick.
He gave
man.
me his card.
Yes,
he told
sir.
He told me I was looking a little scrawny, so to hit him up.
Yes. Everyone, give it up for Tony Moon. Thank you,
Cool.
brother.
Hey, thank you very much.
Absolutely, brother.
Yeah.
Hey, you can. I know you got a. We got some Killer Kush for you right here too,
Oh,
brother.
thank you.
Your little package of Killer Kush. Shout out to Killer Kush, man.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, man. Enjoy that if you do indulge, but if not, pass it on to a friend, sir.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Casey, let's run the ads, and then we're gonna. I'm gonna fuck with the audience for a minute, brother. You ready to go, bro? Yeah.
All right, Shockaware. It's more than streetwear. It's a culture of lifestyle, individuality, and self-expression through clothes. I need you to go to shockaware.com and use code HOODSTOCKS15 right now. Use code HOODSTOCKS15, shockaware.com. All right, you looking for some good quality cannabis? I mean, good quality cannabis. Hit up the folks at Killakush. They specialize from bringing you the OG to exotic. They got it all, baby. So hit them up at killakushcali@gmail.com. That's killakushcali@gmail.com. Or you can follow them on Instagram. It's killakush.losangeles, all right? Or you can hit them up up in Drip Fits Apparel in the city of Whittier for the latest Killakush merch and Hoodstocks merch, all right? Let me give you that address right now. It's 13800 Leffingwell Road, Whittier, California, all right? Here we go, right here. You see this? Blue Magic Honey, made with real blueberry extract. Let me pull this out for you guys. Royalty Honey. Check them out on Instagram, right? Real Honey Packs, all right? Check them out on Instagram. The Real Honey Packs, at Real Honey Packs. It'll make your thing harder than it's been in a while. And if you think you don't need it, that's a damn lie, all right? Because when you're off that honey pack, it's safe to say you'll be all right. Trust me. I know from experience, dude. That's at Real Honey Pack on Instagram, right? Hit them up right now, dude. Tell them Big Case Dog sent you. Hey, LA Peptides has all your weight loss needs, including Ozempic, Mounjaro, and their own proprietary pen that comes back with a money-back guarantee. And I also heard they have TRT. Tap in with Ozempic Vince to answer all your questions, all right? That's 714-269-1900. That's 714-269-1900. Call in all bakers and chefs. Upgrade your kitchen with Origin Bakery and Restaurant equipment, okay? Top quality ovens, mixers, and more at unbeatable prices. Perfect for your next culinary creation. Visit Origin today in the city of South El Monte, or check them out online. Origin Bakery Equipment. You could also reach them at 626-579-3580, all right? Shout out to D. Leo the jeweler. Call him or text him right now. Buy, sell, trade, any gold, any diamond. Check him out. That's D. Leo the jeweler. You could call him at 323-899-0001, or you could text him. You could also hit him up on Instagram at d.leo the jeweler. I'm telling you, his Instagram is really cool, showing you what it takes to run a jewelry business from his POV. Shout out to the piping company, plumbing, piping, and service, all right? The piping company. That's 714-468-2828. And you can hit them up on Instagram at The Piping Co. So please know that you could take your shits with ease with The Piping Co. All right? Criminal defense attorney Doug Sherrod, right? That's KingKongLawyer.com. Lucky has not confirmed that he's using him for his fender bender case, but hey, I guess we'll find out a little bit in the future. But that's KingKongLawyer.com. Doug Sherrod, criminal defense attorney. And last, we want to shout out Lux Tattoos. That's LUXX_tattoos on Instagram. So hit them up if you need that fresh ink. Summer's coming. Let's go.
Okay, Casey, what I want to do is I want to put it on the camera over here on me, baby. What up, my Goonies? Love you guys. Let's open up the phone calls. What we're going to do is we're going to end this live, Casey. I want you to come over here. We're going to do about 30, 40 minutes of phone calls.
Oh, damn.
You good with that?
Yeah.
You got a little time for that, Casey? Okay. Let's end this and start a new stream, bro.
Oh, you want to start?
Yeah, let's start a new stream. We're gonna open up the phone line right now for you guys right now, man, to
right,
call
cool.
in because I know there's some conversation we need to be had real quick. So let's open the phone lines for the Goonies and get this next live we're gonna upload right now, bro. Live.